Child sex trafficking is the darkest evil on the planet Earth. And today, we're not going to dance around it. I'm here to not speculate, but I'm going to show you and declare what the evidence is that proves beyond any dispute that under the Biden administration, the very systems designed to protect unaccompanied migrant children have collapsed. Hundreds of thousands of children have vanished. Sponsors were not properly vetted, red flags were intentionally ignored, and lives were destroyed. This is not my opinion. This is documented by whistleblowers, by government watchdogs, by congressional hearings, and by grand jury reports. Tara Rhodes, Alicia Hopper, and other courageous voices testified to the horrors. The Inspector General reports also confirm it. Oversight hearings also confirm it. Even grand juries confirm it. The evidence shows that the Biden administration allowed shortcuts, negligence, and political priorities to take precedence over the safety of children. They created a pipeline where kids, disappeared into the hands of traffickers, abusers, and exploiters. Today, I'm going to bring forward irrefutable proof. This is not an accusation. It is a documentation. It is accountability, and it's moral reckoning. We are beyond debate. We are in the realm of justice, and this is just the beginning. I'm going to show you several clips to back up every bold statement that I just made. And we're going to begin with RFK in a joint sessions meeting where he actually says in details that HHS enabled and worked alongside child traffickers. Take a listen.
We have ended HHS as the role as the vector, the principal vector in this country for child trafficking. And during the Biden administration, HHS became a collaborator in child trafficking and for sex and for slavery. And we have ended that, and we're very aggressively going out and trying to find these children, the 300,000 children that were lost by the Biden administration.
Now what you're about to hear is not a rumor, it's not speculation. It's sworn testimony given under oath by a man who has spent decades inside America's border security system. He's a good friend of ours. His name is J.J. Carroll. He served under 5 different presidential administrations, and he has been the ebb and flow of border crisis, political agendas, and policy shifts. But he told Congress that he has never witnessed anything like what has happened under President Joe Biden. Carroll's testimony is jaw-dropping. He declared that the Biden administration issued 94 executive orders that, in his own words, intentionally obliterated border security. He testified that these policies didn't just weaken our defenses, they opened the door to the largest child sex trafficking operation in United States history, one backed and enabled by our own government. Think about that for a moment. A career officer, a man who lived through Republican and Democrat presidents alike, he looked lawmakers straight in the eye and swore that what was happening under Joe Biden was unprecedented. He spoke about mass exploitation of children, the deliberate dismantling of safeguards, and the betrayal of trust at the highest levels. These are not fringe claims. These are the words of a veteran insider spoken under oath. And if even a fraction of what he described is true, it represents a crime against humanity carried out under the watch of the Biden administration. This testimony shatters illusions. It forces us to confront the uncomfortable truth that policies are not neutral. They have consequences. And in this case, Carroll says those consequences have enabled traffickers to prey on the most vulnerable among us. My friends, this is not politics. This is completely about protecting children. It's about accountability. This is about truth. And today we will go through Carol's testimony so you can hear for yourself the scale of what he says was unleashed under the Biden administration.
I state without reservation that the United States federal government is the world's largest child sex trafficking organization in modern history. The probability that thousands of these UACs are being raped at this very moment is 100%. Chairman Higgins, Ranking Member Correa, Chairman Bishop, Ranking Member Ivey, and the members of the subcommittee, I appreciate the opportunity to speak about the evil of child trafficking caused by the open border policies under President Joe Biden and his administration. I served in the United States Border Patrol for 24 years until I retired as a Deputy Patrol Agent in charge in San Diego sector. I worked under 5 presidential administrations, and only one president secured the border, President Donald Trump. Border Patrol agents went from working and being supported by the greatest border president in American history to the worst, President Joe Biden. My last year in the Border Patrol was Joe Biden's first year in office. On his first day in office, I watched in disbelief as 94 executive orders cascaded down from Washington, D.C., obliterating every immigration policy that had been provided the most secure border in America's history. Border Patrol agents were forced to carry out unconstitutional orders that violated every law in the Immigration Nationality Act. President Biden, through Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, created policy out of thin air, ignored federal immigration law, and facilitated the largest mass invasion into America that the world has ever seen. The United States of America will have spent hundreds of billions of dollars in 4 years to fund the needs of over 50 million illegal aliens that populate our nation. Between 1 in 6 and 1 in 7 residents in America is an illegal alien. America has suffered the greatest demographic shift in modern history. After serving in the United States Border Patrol for 24 years, spending a year researching and writing a best-selling book entitled Invaded, The Intentional Destruction of the American Immigration System, and filming 2 documentaries, I state with complete certainty that Biden, Harris, and Mayorkas intentionally, strategically, and purposely weaponized illegal immigration and used it as a tool to fundamentally transform America. Inside this invasion, the unspoken evil of child trafficking, and more specifically, child sex trafficking, has flourished. At the end of this current administration, the number of children trafficked will have grown to over 550,000 unaccompanied alien children known as UACs. This horrific number of children will have been arrested, released into America, and then lost. To put this into context, during President Trump's last year in office, Customs and Border Protection arrested 30,557 UACs who were accounted for and not lost. Conversely, in the first year of Biden's presidency, CBP arrested 147,975 UACs, most of which are unaccompanied for and lost. In 2023, Congressional Hearings Health and Human Services Javier Becerra and Director of Office of Refugee Resettlement Robin Marcos forced to admit that their agency had no contact with over 85,000 UACs. They were lost. What did DHS, HHS, and ORR do to correct this humanitarian disaster? Nothing. In fact, all 3 agencies created further policies and procedures to increase the efficiency of moving UACs from the border to the interior of the United States to unknown and unvetted sponsors. Unaccompanied alien children were being handed off to total strangers. Then they disappeared into the darkness of labor and sex trafficking. In fact, a year later, in August of 2024, the Inspector General with oversight over DHS issued a report stating the number lost UACs was not 85,000, it was over 320,000. My business partner, Ryan Matt, and I spent 6 months traveling across America, filming a documentary titled, What is Treason Trafficked? The evil of child sex trafficking is difficult to digest and understand. However, after conducting numerous interviews with officers, agents, and whistleblowers from every alphabet agency and department, it was made clear to us that the federal government knowingly and actively facilitated these criminal acts.
Now, what you're about to hear next is one of the most chilling interviews ever. Tara Rodas is not a politician or an activist. She was on the inside. She worked under the Biden administration, believing she was helping protect unaccompanied children. But What she discovered shook her to her core. In her own words, she says she had no idea that the job she was assigned would mean assisting in child sex trafficking. She was instructed to hand children over not to families, not to vetted sponsors, but to members of trans criminal organizations. Tara Rodas is a whistleblower, and in this Fox News interview, she makes it clear this was not an accident. It wasn't even incompetence. According to her, the Biden administration was aware and intentional. Don't take my word for it. Listen carefully to what Tara Rodas herself reveals in this brief but powerful interview.
That in some zip codes, less than 10% of the children went to family members. This is unacceptable. When I raised my hand to help the Biden administration with this crisis, I believed I was going to help place children in loving homes. I had no idea that we were sending children to criminals, to traffickers, and to members of transnational criminal organizations. So the Biden-Harris failed open border policy allowed bad actors into the country. Transnational criminal organizations, foreign terrorist organizations, MS-13, 18th Street Gang, and we know they are sponsors of children.
Now, some might have shrugged off Tara's Fox interview, but she didn't stop there. She went before Congress under oath, knowing full well what it would cost her. And what she said on live television, she repeated in greater detail, sworn into the record of the United States. Tara testified that while working for the Biden administration, she found herself handing children over to members of transnational criminal organizations. She made it clear that this was not a mistake. It wasn't incompetence. It was systemic. And she says Biden and his administration were completely aware and intentional. But here's the part that should outrage every American. Tara Rodas didn't just lose her job for raising her hand to protect those children. She was threatened. Threatened by the very administration that she once worked for, to the point where she had to seek protection for her own safety. Think about that. A woman who declared to stand up for children in danger found herself in danger. That's how deep this goes. And this is not my commentary. This is her sworn testimony. So listen carefully to what Tara Rodas herself said in front of Congress.
Which side am I on?
Right. Which side are you on?
Which side? Because we know about trafficking all the way back then, how teens were lured from Guatemala, put in slave labor conditions where they were held sometimes at gunpoint and their families were threatened to be killed.
So I've got about 45 seconds. Thank you for being a whistleblower. I guess they didn't treat you very nicely when you blew the whistle out.
No, they did not. They threatened me with investigation. They walked me off the emergency intake site and they took my badge. My agency, thankfully, I work for the Council of the Inspectors General. I'm not here in that capacity, but they actually offered to send agents to retrieve me, to escort me home because they were concerned for my safety. It's a terrible thing when you blow the whistle and to try to save children, and then you are retaliated against for trying to help. HHS did everything they could to keep all of this silent.
Let me ask one more question. You said these kids, that they talk about always sending them to their moms and their dads. You're saying they hand them a piece of paper and tell them this is your mom and this is your dad. Is that what I gathered from the testimony?
Well, as they're making their journey, that happens, but then also the case managers who are not law enforcement, right? They're not investigative. They are receiving documents, photographs of documents on their WhatsApp phone. And there's a perfect example. A 20-plus-year-old man sponsored what we believed was his sister, who was only 16 years old. He submitted a birth certificate for himself and her as brother and sister. And then about 10 days after she's released, we see she's for sale on his WhatsApp page. You know, her shirt is buttoned down to her navel. She's all made up. The documents, there is no one at HHS vetting the children who is
That's where we need law
to
enforcement.
determine.
I'm out of time. Mr. Chairman, I yield back. Thank you.
Now, Let's shift to the man at the very top of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas. When he sat in front of Congress, he looked elected officials in the eye and told them that the Biden administration had operational control of the border. But here's the truth. He knew they didn't. It was intentional that they didn't. And in later testimony, he admitted as much. You have to understand what that actually means. This wasn't just a slip of the tongue or a bad statistic. This was a deliberate lie, a lie told to Congress, a lie told to law enforcement, and a lie told to the American people. And while those lies were being told, children were disappearing into the hands of traffickers. This isn't just some anomaly. This was the pattern of collaboration and cover-up. Deception layered upon deception, all of it to keep the public in the dark while the largest child sex trafficking ring in the history of the world grew under the Biden administration's watch. This clip that you're about to see and hear makes it plain. Mayorkas said one thing while knowing the exact opposite was true. And when leaders lie at that level, the cost isn't measured in numbers or policies. It's measured in human lives, innocent children's lives. So listen closely. This is Alejandro Mayorkas under oath.
March the 28th, just a few days ago. Let's watch your testimony.
With respect to the definition of operational control, I do not use the definition that appears in the Secure Fence Act. And the Secure Fence Act provides statutorily that operational control is defined as preventing all unlawful entries into the United States. By that definition, no administration has ever had operational control.
So here you admit that according to the definition that's in the code, no secretary has ever had operational control. So you know that that definition written into the law has not been achieved. Now, let's go back a few months to the testimony you gave here in the House. This is before Chief Ortiz admitted and told the truth that there was no security at the southwest border. Next clip.
Will you testify under oath right now? Do we have operational control, yes or no?
Yes, we do. And
we have operational control of the borders.
Yes, we do. And Congressman, we are working to...
Listen what operational control defined. In this section, the term operational control means the prevention of all unlawful entries into the United States, including entries by terrorists, other unlawful aliens, instruments of terrorism, narcotics, and other contraband. Do you stand behind your testimony that we have operational control in light of this definition?
Congressman, I think the Secretary of Homeland Security would have said the same thing in 2020.
Mr.
Now here's something that you need to see. And you need to see it with your own eyes. What happens when someone on the left starts to grow a conscience? When they stop towing the party line and start telling the truth about the destruction happening to our children, their own side turns on them in a heartbeat. I'm talking about Mayor Eric Adams of New York City. He is no conservative. He's not MAGA. He's not standing on our side of the aisle, not even close. But in this interview, you're going to hear him admit to what every American with common sense already knows, that children are being put in danger, and that it is his job to protect them. Now, here's the kicker. Right after he made those particular statements, the Biden administration turns its sights on him. They investigated him, and why? Because the left doesn't tolerate dissent. You can echo every narrative, you can defend every policy, but the second that you break ranks and expose the truth, they will make you pay. This is what they do to their own, and if they'll do this to one of their own mayors, imagine what they'll do to a whistleblower, a border agent, or anyone else who dares to stand up for these children. Listen closely to what Mayor Adams says here. And remember, what happened to him immediately after, that's the playbook, and that's how they operate.
We have 500,000 children who had sponsors in this country that we can't find. we can't find them. We don't know if they're doing child labor. We don't know if they're doing sex crimes. We don't know if they're being exploited. 500,000 children. There's a level of hypocrisy that everyone that states they want to protect everyone but innocent individuals who are victims of crimes and children. I want to support and protect children and innocent people that are victims of crime. And those who don't understand that, it's not up to me to try to convince them. I know what my job is, my goal is, and I was clear of that while running and when I became mayor. Safety means everything to me. 500,000 children, we don't know.
There was a moment, a clear opportunity to fix this crisis, to hold someone accountable for the catastrophe at our border, for the missing children, for the criminal organizations preying on the vulnerable. That moment came when Republicans in Congress moved to impeach Alejandro Mayorkas. The evidence was on the table. The country was being flooded with illegal migrants, contracts like BOME being canceled, hundreds of thousands of children vanishing into the shadows, sponsors with criminal ties being handed children, exploitation on a scale this nation has never seen. All of it laid out, all of it undeniable. And yet, when the time came to stand for truth, the Democrats in Congress closed ranks. They stood shoulder to shoulder with Alejandro Mayorkas, not with the American people, not with the children, not with justice. They defended him. They protected him. They patted him on the back as if he were doing a good job. Let me be clear, this was not ignorance. They had access to more information than you and I could ever imagine. They knew every detail, every statistic, every horror story, and still, they chose loyalty to a political machine over loyalty to the truth and to the American people. They vote that they took told us everything we needed to know. It told us that this is not just a failure of one man, it's a system-wide betrayal, because when given the opportunity or choice between protecting the innocent children or protecting Alejandro Mayorkas, they chose Mayorkas. Listen to this clip and remember who stood with him when it mattered most. They can no longer deny culpability.
Differences of opinion.
The historic impeachment vote against President Joe Biden's top border official, Alejandro Mayorkas, is over. The Democratic majority Senate swiftly ended the bid from House Republicans launched months ago and rejected both of the House's articles of impeachment on Wednesday. House Republicans accused Mayorkas of not enforcing U.S. border laws and lying to Congress, with illegal immigration hitting record levels since Biden took office in 2021. The dismissal of those charges was engineered by Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, who rejected the House case against Mayorkas.
I raise a point of order that impeachment Article 1 does not allege conduct that rises to the level of a high crime or misdemeanor as required under Article 2, Section 4 of the United States Constitution, and is therefore unconstitutional.
By a vote of 51 to 48, the Senate threw out the first charge against Mayorkas, and Schumer dismissed the second charge that Mayorkas lied to Congress. Republican senators, such as Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, protested Schumer's move and insisted on a full-blown trial.
You set a very unfortunate precedent here. This means that the Senate can ignore, in effect, the House's impeachment. This is a day that's not a proud day in the history of the Senate.
And Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson said he was deeply disappointed. Immigration is a top concern for Republicans.
Now, everything that we've covered so far hasn't shaken you? If that's the case, this next testimony absolutely will, or at least it should. This is not coming from the border. It's not coming from a local sheriff or activist group. This is coming from inside the federal government itself, from the GSA, the General Services Administration, the agency that manages contracts worth hundreds of billions of dollars. One of the whistleblowers has stepped forward to expose how under the Biden administration an underground economy has emerged, a taxpayer-funded shadow network for transporting illegal migrants across this country, a contract that exceeded $250 million used to move unaccompanied minors from one end of America to the other. This wasn't humanitarian work. This was a child trafficking enabled network by our own government. Imagine the horror of working inside of an agency that you trusted only to realize that you were facilitating the very exploitation you thought you were preventing. That's what this whistleblower wrestled with, and it broke her conscience so badly she had to speak out. In her interview with James O'Keefe, she detailed the policies, the fights, the midnight transfers, the silent movement of children whose names will never be known, all orchestrated with your tax dollars. If this doesn't make you sick to your stomach, if this doesn't open your eyes to the gravity of evil operating inside of the Biden administration, then I don't know what will. Listen carefully to her words. This is someone who saw it all firsthand.
My line in the sand moment was when I found out that GSA had awarded a contract to a company to transport unaccompanied minors.
What was that like for you?
It was like someone kicked me in my gut. Once I found out about the contract, that night, I got on my computer and I started doing a Google search.
Action obligation $40 million, total contract value $347 million. That's over $250 million. That's a lot of money to transport unaccompanied children. I mean, this is a big money business.
And that's why we're sitting here today, because as I shared before, what you know, you cannot unknow.
The crisis of conscience would only grow and reach inside the holy grail of the unaccompanied child transportation business. There's the white buses right there. That's the FedEx transportation hub for the unaccompanied minor children. They stop the transportation of children, they stop the money.
My name is Clarissa Rippey.
And where do you work?
I work for General Services Administration, aka GSA.
And for those who are not familiar with what GSA is or what it does, can you talk a little about that?
GSA, it basically manages all the services for the federal government. Then you have the transportation side of GSA that manages like travel, transportation, and logistics, that's the area that I'm working in right now.
And what sort of thing do you do in that department?
I'm what's called an 1102. I'm a contract specialist, and my responsibility is to work with contractors that provide products and services to the federal government. And I work on a team of contracting officers, and we award those contracts.
NGO stands for non-governmental organization. But in addressing political and social issues, they receive money from the government. These groups get large amounts of money. The more immigrants they represent, the more money they receive. Follow it?
Well, the film Line in the Sand, we saw so many of these companies. People were amazed and shocked to see just how many busing companies and making so much money off of the crisis. Were you aware of some of those names of those companies in the film? Or?
Not originally. Then I came over to TTL and became aware that that GSA had awarded a contract for the transportation services.
What was your line in the sand moment here in this situation?
My line in the sand moment was when I found out that GSA had awarded a contract to a company to transport unaccompanied minors.
So you found this out, and then you had this line in the sand moment. What was that like for you?
It was like someone kicked me in my gut, because I had just gotten a promotion, accepted the position for that particular division, and I was not aware at all that the agency that I worked for was party to transporting unaccompanied minors. Once I found out about the contract, that night I got on my computer and I started doing a Google search, and I did keyword searches. I did transport unaccompanied minors. I put in transport of immigrant children, and all of these websites popped up, and it led back to some of these NGOs and these companies, you know, like Acuity, which was the original awardee of the contract, and then MVM protested that award, and the contract wound up back with MVM.
Within the last 9 months, MVM has received over $129 million from the Department of Homeland Security, $719 million from DHS overall.
But as I continued to read the documents that I found online, I found out these are the illegal immigrants, the minors who are coming over without their parents, without anyone that they knew, being shipped at every hour of the day, especially like late at night when we're all asleep in our beds and our children are safe at home. These children were being shipped all over the place.
Shipped over, and that must have made you feel guilty.
Yeah.
For having this promotion.
Mm-hmm.
And that was your line in the sand moment. And we also have some documents here that we've been provided by you. Just tell me what this one here indicates.
This is a GSA contract that was awarded to MVM.
And so it says here in this document that action obligation 40 million, base and all option, total contract value 347 million. That's over $250 million.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of money to transport unaccompanied children. I mean, this is a big money business. It just seems like lost in all of this is any semblance of right and wrong. It's just a lot of people who watched Line in the Sand. The takeaway is it's all about money, and there's no regard for children or human beings.
Evidently, it's been very effective.
Very effective.
They have noted that they wanted the contractor to transport 1,000 children within a 24-hour period of notification. 1,000 children.
Why do they want that?
Exactly. That was my question. Why 1,000 every time within a 24-hour period?
Sounds like a quota or something to justify the contracts. It's almost like they treat these children like widgets or products. Like a
commodity.
Exactly, like potato chips on the back of a transport vehicle. You don't see, I don't see a lot of federal employees sitting down to speak about this. What led you to be here?
Now that I'm privy to this information, I can't forget about it. You know, I can't just say, I'm just gonna wipe my brain clean, it never happened.
But most people do.
Yes.
So why is that?
And I'm guilty of that too. You know, you hear someone will share information with you, and you just like, no, I just want my quiet life. I don't want to be involved. I just don't want all the drama. Right. You know, I just want to live my peaceful life and just go
through the comforts of life.
Yeah, the comforts of life.
Eric Cochran, my former whistleblower friend, he said people just want to go through the comforts of life. And
right.
And a lot of people are going to wonder, are you afraid of? First of all, you're doing nothing wrong. You're just speaking the truth. Nothing that you've said here is improper in any way or illegal in any way. If anything, you're just being honest about the way it is. But you know how these people can be and how these government agencies can be. Are you concerned about retaliation?
No, and I'll tell you why. Lord, what they are doing is your mission. This is what you have placed us here for, this very moment. This is what the Lord has placed in my heart to do. And people can try and do whatever they want to do to me, but they're not fighting me. They're fighting God.
That was unbelievable. But the question we have to ask is why? Why would the federal government, why would the Biden administration allow, enable, and even protect the trafficking of children? This isn't just failure. It isn't just incompetence. It's willful ignorance. It's intentional, and it's evil. It's no longer hidden in the shadows, though. It wears a mask of power because Behind every policy, every canceled contract, every vanished child is a deeper reason, an agenda, something so dark, so disturbing that most Americans can't even bring themselves to believe it. And that's exactly how it thrives, because the truth sounds too outrageous to accept. But listen, what's been uncovered recently takes us past politics into something far more sinister. Tunnels underground, passages beneath Washington, D.C., and other parts of this country, said to be used for the trafficking of minors on a scale that shocks the conscience. Some will dismiss this as a conspiracy, some will laugh it off, but I'm telling you, it's not conspiracy, it's reality. Right now, President Donald Trump is investigating. JAG officers are being moved into D.C. to try these cases because the belief is that the civilian judiciary is compromised. These cases will be handled under the Uniform Code of Military Justice. That's how high the stakes are and how deep the corruption runs. Tonight, we're going to show you the jaw-dropping footage that we have acquired and testimony from those who risked everything to expose these tunnels, these networks, and these unspeakable crimes. What you are about to see and hear is not for the faint of heart, but it is the truth. And once you see it, you can never unsee it.
Well, yet more evidence is growing by the day that the federalization of Washington, D.C. Metro Police by President Trump does in fact involve cleaning out the underground satanic networks as well as petty crime and homelessness on the streets. Turns out that, as we've reported on this over the past couple of months here on the show, that these underground satanic tunnels underneath Washington, D.C. and actually members of the House of Representatives have actually called these out, and they've lost their jobs for telling the truth about what's actually down here, what's actually going on underneath D.C. It turns out these satanic networks would compromise public officials by using these underground SRA rituals, thereby impacting the performance of federal institutions, which basically constitutes treason. And Trump knows about it. And the inner circle knows about it. That's why they're doing this. And by the way, the mayor of D.C. just admitted that crime has now plummeted in D.C. thanks to the federalization and the National Guard troops that are in Washington, D.C. Crime has all but disappeared thanks to the U.S. military being there. It's kind of crazy when you think about it. Dr. Michael Salla was the man that broke the story originally. He broke it wide open a number of weeks ago here on our show and now has more evidence. More evidence is emerging that he was right.
Well, that's right, yes. I mean, what we have here is a situation where these satanic networks have been operating for decades, compromising officials from all branches of government, including the judiciary, which is very, very important, because that means when it comes to the arrest of Satanists that are apprehended in these underground enclaves, which can extend as far as 10 miles underground, in Washington, D.C. and elsewhere around the country, that when it comes to trying these officials, you can't do it through the normal court system because a lot of these judges are compromised themselves.
Like I told you in the beginning of this broadcast, I would bring before you irrefutable proof of the Biden administration's crimes against humanity, against these children, and I have done that. You've seen the testimonies, you've heard the whistleblowers, you've witnessed the evidence, and now the question is not whether or not evil exists, but whether you will have the courage to face it. What we are dealing with is not politics. It's not left versus right. It's good versus evil. And the things shown to you on your television every night are not truth. They're distractions, designed to blind us, to pit us against one another while innocent lives are destroyed in the shadows. Do not be deceived. This is not a problem confined to the left. The testimony revealed what takes place at Bohemian Grove. You heard him. Men dressed in druid robes, bowing before idols, Molech, performing ritual sacrifices, and among them, not just Democrats, but prominent Republicans like George Bush and George Bush Jr. and others. Both sides of the aisle united not in truth but in deception, two wings of the same bird, giving us illusions of choice while the system itself rots with corruption. The evil that permeates our government is deeper than party lines. It thrives on our silence, it feeds on our division, and grows stronger every time good people look away. But here's the truth that no one can escape. One day, every man, every leader, every politician, and every one of us will stand before Almighty God, and we will give an account for the things we did and the things that we refused to do. For whether we stood silent while children were being trafficked and destroyed, or whether we stood boldly for righteousness and truth. That is why I can't remain silent. This is why I have spoken out tonight, and that is why you must wake up, because if we keep fighting each other, left and right, the only winners are those who serve the darkness and the shadows. Remember this: evil grows when good men stay silent, and silence is no longer an option.
Manhattan Beach, California. The children there claimed there were tunnels under the school. They were taken into the tunnels and through the tunnels up into the trap door of a bathroom in a triplex next door, placed in automobiles and prostituted in the community. These are 2, 3, and 4-year-old children before they entered kindergarten. In addition, the children claimed that they were flown into the mountains where they were involved with adults in robes, black robes, chanting candles. They talked about the brown babies who were cut up, actually sacrificed. And in checking into this and researching this, of course, this was obviously a satanic ceremony. The McMartin family, who owned the preschool, they were tried of Ray Bucky and his grandmother. The grandmother was acquitted, hung jury on Ray Bucky. The second trial, another hung jury. I had an opportunity in 1990 to gain control of the school. Now, the school had been given to Danny Davis.
I've talked to several whistleblowers say they weren't even fingerprinting the sponsors on many occasions and not doing proper vetting. We have a whistleblower who's testified in front of Congress now 3 times. That a lot of these children seem to be victims of trafficking. They released to unvetted sponsors, and many children will be released to one sponsor. One whistleblower said there was 11 young girls released to one male, single male. Maybe it's all innocent. Maybe it's not. But
there's nothing innocent about it. That's sick.
You know, and look, the CBP One app, they shut that down because of massive fraud. One of the insiders in CBP told me, for example, one dead man sponsored over 1,600 people. Been dead for years. Massive fraud, massive trafficking involved. And when they talked about opening CBP One app to do that, I said at the time, before they even implemented it, if you do this, it's going to create a huge trafficking network. Or if you're from Cuba, Nicaragua, Haiti, or Venezuela, you want to come to the United States under this CHNV program, you just got to find a sponsor who want to take care of you. How many sick pedophiles would be willing to sponsor anybody from one of those 4 countries to come live in the United States? Then after they get here, you own them. All you got to do is, you their official sponsor. Without you, they can't stay. And what are these? Sick sponsors, not all of them, but many of these are going to be predators and sick people. What are they going to do to these people who are trying to stay in this country? It's a huge human trafficking issue. I guarantee you.
And by human trafficking, is it mostly for prostitution?
Prostitution or forced labor. Mainly those two.